If the lighting in this video looks weird, it's because my ring light decided to break about 2 minutes before I started filming, and we are running on a desk lamp and a dream, so bear with me, thanks! Hey, how you doing? My name is Grace, or Gracine. If you already knew that, good to see you again, and if not, hi, welcome, glad to have you here. This is my second video in my series about Singles Inferno Season 4. The first one went over the first 6 episodes of the season, and this one will go over the last 6 episodes. You do not by any means have had to have watched this show in order to enjoy these videos. However, if you have not, and you have not watched my first video on it, I highly recommend you do so, or else this will be a very confusing experience for you. But with that being said, let's get into it. Episode 7. So, as a reminder, we ended the last video at the second couple matching, and from said couple matching, we have 3 couples going to paradise this time. We have Taewon and Jiyeon, Dongwon, Arin, and Junso and Xian. So, starting off with Taewon and Jiyeon. They are cute. They are chatting over dinner. Jiyeon's dress is, of course, as usual, absolutely to die for. She looks incredible. And it is here that we get to learn their ages and professions. So, Jiyeon is 25, and she's a spatial designer. And Taewon is 31, which was incredibly unexpected to both me and the host.
와, 의외로 나이가 31? 형님이네. 우리 22로 봤어요. 저희 진짜 오래 봤는데.
And he works as a DJ. He owns an underground club in Itaewon, and he works with electric music or house music, and he wants to expand that as like a genre or culture. We're gonna get into him, okay? He's so annoying. To me, this was definitely the most surprising profession reveal because his general demeanor and personality doesn't exactly scream cool DJ dude. It screams antisocial, awkward nerd. You know what I mean? Like, I just, it's not fitting, but okay. Later in the evening, they go ice skating. They're kind of just goofing around with each other. It's kind of cute. Moving on to Dongwon and Arin. These two are absolutely adorable, and I love them so much. I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent about them. I don't care, okay? It's my channel. I get to do what I want. Anyways, they're adorable, and I love everything about them. Their flirting is so natural, yet effective, especially from Arin, because she will say things quite casually and almost half joking, but they will still be effective and make Dongwon quite flustered. Meanwhile, on the other side, Dongwon is quite awkward, and I think that causes his words to come out quite bluntly or straightforward, but in a good way. Almost as if he can't keep his feelings from coming out. It's quite cute. I like them. They're my favorites. Anyways, as normal, they have dinner. Dongwon tries to guess Arin's age, and I love this moment because you can totally see how easily Dongwon will just fold for Arin.
26? 보다는 내가 3살 정도 어려서 23일 것 같아.
아니 솔직히 말해줘.
23.
23?
어.
나는 25살이야.
비슷해. 한 살을 거의 나를 잡아먹을 것처럼 눈빛을 보내네.
한 살 차이가 얼마나 큰데?
그지.
1년 동안
As a reminder, Dongwon is 30 years old and he is a certified public accountant. And Arin is 25 years old and she is a model, specifically for advertisements. They talk over dinner and really get to know each other, and it's at this point that we learn that they are really just kind of perfect for each other. Like, not only do they share the same birth month and work in the same area, but they also live in the same neighborhood, and even more so, their parents also live in the same neighborhood. Like, everything with them just kind of matches up perfectly. Arin again expresses her regret about not choosing Dongwon during the first couple matching, and she notes that she had a lot of trouble trying to approach Dongwon, let alone call him out to go talk to him one-on-one. And overall, they kind of just talk about how despite all the misunderstandings and mishaps and like interruptions that they experienced, they were still able to come together and go to paradise. Later on in the night, they go swimming, and oh my god, they're so cute. Oh my god, they give me like a little bit of cuteness aggression, especially Arin.
일로 와봐.
가볼게 내가. 어때?
강아지 아니야?
Oh, they're so cute. Their energy and vibe is just very comforting and almost nostalgic in a way, in the sense of like a first love or a old married couple. Like, it just feels very like cute and innocent and genuine.
나를 믿고 물에 떠.
오케이.
그리고 앞으로 계속 와. 산다.
저기요, 저 바랐는데요.
너무 무거워 빨리.
Later that evening, they drink while winding down together, and I don't even know what to say about this part. They're just They're so cute.
나는 나이 먹기 때문에 일단 결혼할 수 있다는 가정 열고 하기 때문에
비슷하네 나랑.
일단 결혼한다 생각해.
Now, you know how I mentioned earlier that I think Dongul's words end up exposing his feelings when he's flustered? Well, in a deleted scene from that night, Arin is trying to tell Dongul to sleep in the big bed because he's too tall for like the kid-sized twin bed that they've brought into the room. And just watch.
근데 이렇게 하면 엑스트라 베드 의미가 없어. 나 너무 부담스러운데.
그거 걱정 안 해도 되는 게 내가 생각한 건 아니나.
그냥 내가 여기서 자는 게 나을 것 같아. 사이즈가.
자기가 장난해?
여기가 훨씬 크니까.
First off, he calls her Arina, which is already an indicator of how close he feels to her because contestants will usually refer to each other by their first name followed by a si or 님. These are titles you attach to somebody's name to be polite to them, with si being more of the standard ending and 님 being a more respectful or like a more polite version of that. However, oftentimes whenever you start getting closer to somebody, you address them by their name followed by an a or a ya. And while this isn't necessarily a major step because a lot of the contestants have already agreed to speak casually with one another, I think this sudden transition of him calling her Arin-si to Arina is an indicator of how comfortable Dongul feels with her. And in case that wasn't enough for you, 2 seconds later, he calls her 자기야, which means babe. It just rolls off his tongue like it's nothing. And Arin doesn't address it at all. Like, she doesn't even recognize it. Who knows? Maybe it was an extension of the joke that Dongul was kind of talking about earlier, like the just assume that we're married thing. But if it was, I would have assumed that Arin would kind of play into it a little bit more and be like, ugh, but how am I going to let my Tagiya sleep on a bed that's too short for him? You know, like something like that. Regardless, however, that is how their night ends. If there's any couple that I think should genuinely date outside of the show, I think it is them. They are fantastic. And finally, we have Junso and Sian. And I'm going to be upfront with y'all. I'm not a big fan of Junso. And I don't really love Sian. So this pairing is just not my favorite. While they're at dinner, Sian very openly talks to Junso about how she's confused and conflicted because her feelings for different people keep changing day by day, and it's kind of all just overwhelming her at this point. And it's been forcing her to almost hold herself back while she's in paradise because she's scared of her feelings changing and then causing a misunderstanding as a result. Like, she doesn't want to lead anybody on. But Junso comforts her and says that those are decisions that are going to have to be made anyway, and so she can put them aside for now and just worry about having a good time tonight. Back in their hotel room, they're hanging out together. Xian is sitting by the hot tub. However, Junso immediately ruins it by continuing to call her 야 or hey instead of her name.
왜 야라 해? 왜 야라 해?
야 별로야.
시아나라 해.
At one point, she even says that like saying 야 Xiana, hey Xian would be fine, but he doesn't do that. He just I don't like Junso. I really don't. Honestly, there are multiple points during this night where I just cannot read Junso's face. He almost seems angry to me, and I can't tell if it's just the alcohol, some jealousy because he's hearing Xian talk about the other men that she is interested in, or what, but it was really off-putting to me, to be honest. One particular point that really stood out to me was after Xian talks about her feelings for a bit, he basically goes, yeah, well, that's great and all, but like, I don't think you're telling me everything.
그래서 대화가 진짜 훨씬 잘 통한다 생각해.
그래? 그러면 다행이네. 근데 나는 개인적으로 너가 아직까지는 생각이 좀 많아 보여.
It got to a point where I was just like, dude, lay off her. She doesn't have to tell you everything that she's feeling. Like, he practically tells her what her feelings are at one point, and the face that he makes afterwards is just freaky to me. Like, it's almost scary.
내가 선택 안 받아도 돼. 근데 그냥 진심으로 했으면 좋겠어. 좋다, 완전 좋다 이런 말은 안 되고 만약에 좀 다른 사람의 생각이 난다. 많이 신경 쓰이고 있다. 이런 식의 표현이 난 더 좋을 것 같아.
He eventually gets her to admit that she likes Teo the most right now, and that's great and all, but she didn't owe you that confession, especially after she has already expressed that she is so confused by her own feelings. I'm not trying to make Junso seem like a jerk. I'm sure editing and the alcohol in his system is contributing to how he's coming off to me. However, he told her earlier to not worry about that kind of stuff, but now it's all that he is asking her about and all that he's talking about all night.
그래서 그걸 물어보고 싶었어. 태호 씨와의 어떤 얘도 좋고 얘도 좋고 얘도 좋고 어떡하지? 너가 날 어떻게 처음에 보고 지금 보고 있는지.
셋 중에 누가 제일 좋은데?
And he just keeps pushing and pushing and pushing for more to the point where she ends up crying because of her own indecisiveness.
눈물 나오면 그냥 더 흘리는 거야.
근데 그게 아니라 나도 내 마음 확실하게 모르겠으니까 이러는 거야. 눈물이 계속.
It just wasn't necessary. I will say, eventually we learned that they drank about half a bottle of 80 proof whiskey that night, so I'm sure that that definitely played a role in her crying and everything turning out the way that it did. However, I just think that this conversation would have been better suited to either have with one of the other girls or to have with one of the other guys that like she has no romantic interest in. Because regardless of how much he may have helped her understand her feelings or not, I still think that she felt a certain level of pressure in that conversation because he's one of the options and she knows that. Like she can't fully let herself go in front of him because she runs the risk of hurting him in that situation. So I don't think that it was the right person to have that conversation with, and I don't think that he should have pushed her that far. I think it was inappropriate. And then, to make her less confused, Junso proudly proclaims that they will be going back to paradise together.
그래도 너무 생각하거나 걱정하지 마. 넌 나랑 여기 한 번 더 오게 될 거야.
As if that's a statement that would be of any help to her right now. Like, come on. Back in paradise, Jongsu and Hyejin chat in the evening, and Hyejin expresses how Jongsu's actions have kind of been confusing for her because, remember, Jongsu has gone to paradise with multiple women, and he has a tendency to do little acts of service that can often be seen as flirting. So all of the girls that like him have at one point or another found themselves asking if he actually likes them or if he's just treating everybody like that. And I will give it to Jongsu this time. This is the one and only time I will give it to Jongsu, okay? Whenever Hyejin asks who his top choice is, he is flat out and he says it is Xian. However, he follows that up with
뭔가 나는 멀티가 잘 안 돼서 일단 나는 시안이라는 사람 한번 알아보고 싶어.
Bitch, am I a puzzle to complete? Like, what do you mean multitasking? Hello? I can't multitask. You can't have two separate conversations with two separate women at two separate times. Look, I get it. It can be overwhelming to talk to multiple different people romantically at the same time. But you're on Singles Inferno. Like, you didn't think that this might be a possibility, that this might happen? Are you stupid? But also, I also tend to focus on just one person at one time, but I don't see them as a task I need to complete. I don't see them as like a chore that I gotta mark off in my to-do list. Like, it's just weird phrasing. I genuinely think that Jongsu is more or less trying to let Hyejin down gently. However, his wording just comes off as dehumanizing and objectifying to me. It's just icky. I don't like it. And then to make it worse, when Hyejin is like, okay, let's go back now, he's like, but why? And she's like, because we've said what we need to say. Like, let's go back and hang out with everybody. And this bitch goes.
왜 여기서 놀아? 둘이 놀자.
And Hyejin is like, first off, case in point to my earlier criticism. And second, unless you have something else to say, let's go. And this bitch goes further. And is like,
난 할 말은 많은데?
뻥치지 마 진짜.
아이, 그러니까 정수 씨가 저게 문제야.
Kim Jong-soo, get yourself together. What is wrong with you? But in the post-interview, Hyejin is like, yeah, no, I'm not dealing with that crap. And she is only focusing on Jong-un from now on. Meanwhile, in his post-interview,
제가 헷갈리겠네. 헷갈렸대요.
she said, I made it confusing? Are you out of your mind, you imbecile? Clearly you are, because hello, can you take any criticism? Apparently not.
저는 사실 제가 뭐라고 저 때문에 막 그렇게 상처받는 게 좀
Clearly. I'm glad Hyejin saw that. I hope Xian and Hyejin get it too.
그래서 제가 조금 유하게 말하려고 했던 것 같아요. 그래서 그게 헷갈렸다고 느꼈을 수도 있겠네요. 네.
Did you listen to a single thing that she said to you? The way you worded that conversation is not at all why she was confused. The reason why she was confused was because your actions are not those of a man who genuinely valued her feelings and took them into consideration whenever he was interacting with other people. You weren't clear with her, you weren't apologetic for the misunderstandings that your actions caused, and you were more than happy to string her and the other girls along if it meant that you didn't actually have to address any of their feelings with any level of sincerity. I'm a Jongsu hater. What can I say, babe? Y'all are gonna think I'm going hard on this dude. I need you to wait 2 more minutes, okay? Because we're not done yet. Because eventually we are left with Hyejin and Jongsu having a talk together. Yep, Round 2, baby. Because Haerin is trying to gauge who Jongsu likes at this point. And he says to her, oh, well, I picked Xian for the second couple matching, but, you know, I had a good time with you. Like, I really enjoyed my paradise date with you. Okay. Oh, and also, you're my ideal type, appearance-wise. What does that mean? Wait. And then again, he goes in with
좋고 한데 나는 진짜 멀티가 안 돼서
I don't know if other people were as put off by that choice of words as I was, but the way it came off to me was I don't view our interactions as me speaking with and getting to know a human being. I see it as a box that I need to check off on my to-do list. Like, I see it as a chore that my parents gave me. Like, well, if you do this, you might get a little dollar for a reward. I hate him. It just really rubbed me the wrong way, clearly. Anyways, Haerin asks Jongsu what he likes about Xian, and he bumbles around and eventually lands on, well, you make me want to take care of you, but Xian's always on my mind. And even Haerin in the moment is like, yeah, I don't know what the hell that means.
신경 쓰이는 감정 모르겠어. Okay.
And again, this is the second woman that has done this. Haerin brings up the fact that she wanted to know if Jongsu actually had feelings for her because he's nice to everyone. And this narg goes,
다른 사람들한테 그렇게 다정하진 않아.
my dude, 10 minutes ago, you were just talking to Hyejin about how that's just your personality and guy or girl, you're just, you know, you like to take care of everybody. Now you're not attentive to people at all? Whatever. Jongsu says that he kind of feels out of it. And like anybody with a brain would, Hyejin is like, okay, let's go to sleep then. And he says,
나 아쉽잖아.
and props to Haerin, because even in the moment, she's like, really, dude? Like, you're doing this again? I just said stuff about this, and now you're doing, like, what?
난 헷갈리는 거 싫은데.
And he goes,
헷갈리지 않게 정확하게 얘기를 해줬잖아.
when exactly? Props to Haerin, because she immediately calls his bullshit out and is like, when exactly did you do that? I'm sorry, was I not there? Like, I think I missed that because I don't think you laid out anything clearly for me, hence why I am confused. And in the post interview, she says that, like, all he had to do was be upfront about his feelings for Xian, and she would have accepted that and moved on and it was fine. But instead he was vague and he invalidated her, kind of gaslit her, to be honest. And if you thought that Jongsu was done being a dumbass, think again, because in his post interview, again, he's like,
어느 정도 제 마음을 정확하게 전달을 해줘야 되겠다고 생각해서 시안 씨가 더 좋다고 얘기를 했던 것 같아요. 명확하게. 안 명확했나 그것도?
he's so obnoxious. Oh my god. Moving on. Back in paradise, we see Junso and Xian getting ready for bed together, and I cannot, for the life of me, take Junso with that face mask and his Mickey Mouse pajamas. Seriously, I can't do it. I can't do it. But they've decided to just kind of share one bed, and Junso keeps getting uncomfortably close to Xian, especially for her being so drunk and emotionally unstable. There was absolutely no reason for that, sir. Like, you can see the time just fine from your side of the bed. You didn't have to do all that. And Jinso just kind of scoots closer and closer and closer to Xian until it seems like he just kind of hugs her or something of that sort. We can't really see because there's blankets, obviously, but regardless, they're definitely getting a lot more physical than the other contestants. And I want to pause for a second and bring up some of the cultural context behind this, because for Americans watching this show, I think that you see this, or you're like hearing me talk about it and you're like, okay, so they're sharing a bed and they're cuddling. Like, who cares? It's not that big of a deal. But at its core, South Korea is a very conservative country. People rarely express their sexuality, straight or otherwise, in the very like open way that we might be used to seeing in the US, especially whenever it comes to women, because they will often be faced with a lot of intense backlash. So even when the scene began and Xian said that it was fine for Junso to sleep in the same bed with her, the hosts were already surprised.
한 침대면?
처음
진짜로?
아니에요?
한 침대면?
Like in previous seasons, we've had contestants that have been like that since day one. And on the last night in Paradise, they decide to share a bed and the hosts are still surprised because it's just not very commonly seen. There are just a lot of societal pressures and expectations whenever it comes to that. And I think a lot of it ends up culminating in this looking down at the woman for expressing her own sexuality, which is here too, but you know, to a greater degree, I believe. But they're already sharing a bed. And now he's creeping up on her. He's creeping into her space, putting his hands on her under the blankets. And then, episode 8. I look different. No, I don't. Shush. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Moving on. Thankfully, nothing seemed to have happened. It just seems like they kind of cuddled up and then went to sleep. I've seen some netizens be really hard on Junso about this scene, and I'm certainly not gonna be the biggest defender of the guy. But I will say it doesn't seem like anything too nefarious occurred. Still don't like him, but I mean, she did vocally say that like it was fine for him to sleep in the same bed at him, but allowing someone to sleep next to you is not an open invitation for them to like get up all in your business. But Dex does point out something that I would like to note here, which is that Xian never initiated any physical contact herself. It was all Junso doing that. Take from all of that what you will. I would love to hear how you guys interpreted that scene down in the comments because I feel like I've seen lots of different varied opinions on it. And I'm kind of in the middle. Anyways, the next morning during the helicopter ride back to Inferno, you know how sometimes they'll like get a little sleepy so they'll lean their head on the other person? Well, Xian starts kind of dozing off and Junso kind of just like yanks her head onto his shoulder, and I'm sure it wasn't like overly aggressive, but I could just feel the muscle in my neck strain as I watched that. But they arrive back in Inferno, and then there is an announcement that there will be a men's game. Basically, all the men will be doing Korean wrestling in a sand pit for a chance to take a girl to paradise. So with these games, since it's later in the show, rather than a couple matching, the people that come in first, second, and third will be able to take a contestant of their choice to paradise. The other contestant doesn't really have a say in the matter. They're just picked to go and they go. Creates a little bit more drama. I'm not really gonna go into the whole Korean wrestling thing. I will say that anytime that contestants are made to like wrestle with each other, especially the men, I immediately get the ick from a lot of them because I don't like men who are super violent. And it seems like they're like with each other. So with that being said, Junso comes in first, Jongsu comes in second, and somehow Taewon comes in third. Still not really sure how he managed that. They put him against Teo, so I'm wondering if it's like a height thing. I don't know, but I don't know how that lanky dude got third place in wrestling. I don't know how wrestling works. But after the game, all of the contestants kind of go on like mini dates in Inferno. For the men who are going to Paradise, it's a time for them to decide who they might want to go with. And for the men who aren't going to Paradise, it's a time for them to talk to some of the women who might be going to Paradise and vice versa. And because of that, Teo goes to Xian pretty much immediately because with Jongsu and Junso in the top 3, he knows pretty much that Xian will be going to Paradise and he won't have a chance to talk to her. And he's sweet as usual. He tells her he missed her. Just, I don't know, his usual cute self. He brings her like a cute little bouquet of flowers. He's very cute. He's very thoughtful. But you can tell that Xian feels awkward with Teo, and Teo picks up on it pretty quickly. And so knowing that she has multiple guys that are kind of like options for her, he tries to clear the air and kind of reassure her because he tells her quite frankly, for me, it's always been you. But at the same time, I don't want you to feel like you owe me something or that you have to consider me just because I like you. And this is one of the things that I really love about Teo because I feel like while other people may say similar things, I feel like you can tell that Teo actually means them. He's not saying it just to be nice. He genuinely means it. He genuinely wants the best for her and he wants her to be happy with her decisions. I mentioned this in the last video, but he uses the analogy that in his heart there's a room and Xian walked into the room and he locked the door behind her, closed it and locked it. so that way nobody else could get in. But at the same time, Xian can leave at any time because the door opens from the inside. I feel like that's a good representation of how he's very upfront about I like you and only you, but at the same time, you don't have to be locked up because of my feelings. You don't have to feel like you're stuck or confined because of my feelings. It's okay. And I appreciate that. I just overall really admire his emotional maturity. And then Dongwoo's dilemma ensues because he just got back from paradise with Arin, but both Haerin and Yujin like him. So Haerin approaches him first, and during their chat, she expresses that, you know, she chose him for the couple matching yesterday, and that she doesn't expect her feelings to change from here on out. Like, she doesn't expect to waver to another person. She likes Dongwoo and Dongwoo only, basically. And you can kind of tell that it catches Dongwoo off guard, and that he doesn't really know what to do about it.
나 진짜 이렇게 직접적으로 표현한 사람 없는데.
Meanwhile, halfway through their conversation, Yujin came up and was like, hey, I want to talk to him too. So as soon as Haerin and Dongwoo are done, Dongwoo has to go talk to Yujin. And girl,
예쁘게 입었네.
진짜 고마워.
청국도록 예쁘게 입었네. 너 예뻐?
At that point, you just gotta take the L and cancel the conversation because, oh my god. But they sit down together, and again, Dongwoo is basically told, I like you, and I'm going to pursue you from here on out. And at this point, he's just lost. Like, he's so confused as to how this has all transpired. You can tell that both of the confessions were out of left field for him because he literally sits there and is like,
내가 조금 뭔가 상대방에 대해서 모호하게 해서 그렇게 다들 그러니까 내 행동에 뭔가 잘못된 게 있었을까?
as in, did I do something to accidentally lead you on without knowing that? Like, did I give you some kind of indicator that I was into you that I didn't mean to send to you? You know what I mean? But awkward yet diligent as he is, Dongwoo tells Yujin that he will, you know, take some time to process this and try to give her a response quickly. And she's kind of like, well, I wish you wouldn't, to be honest. And the way Dongwoo reacted to this would have sent me over the edge.
정해야지 다 마음이 뭔가 편할 것 같아.
난 또 내심 얼른 안정해줬으면 좋겠어. 내심. 나랑도 일단.
This man is stressed. He thought it was just him and Arin, and that was good. But suddenly, in the span of like 20 minutes, 2 different women have confessed their feelings for him, and he's visibly overwhelmed by it. Like, this poor man. But while Dongwoo's reality is crumbling before his very eyes, Minso and Junso go to have a chat because Junso will be choosing someone to go to paradise with tonight, and their conversation is pretty short, like it's 5 minutes max. And Minso makes it clear that she likes him, and they talk a little bit about Junso's time in paradise with Xian, and then Junso asks her if she would like to go to paradise. And she says yes. And he's like, okay, cool, I've heard all I need to hear, let's go. End of conversation. Y'all might be confused by my face right now, but give it a minute, okay? Because Junso then has a conversation with Xian, and it goes pretty much the same way. He asks Xian the same question. Do you want to go to paradise? And she also says yes. So now both of them are like, he's definitely taking me to paradise, right? I mean, like, why would he ask me that if he wasn't going to take me to paradise? Like, that doesn't make sense. So no matter who he chooses, one of them is inevitably going to be left behind and be confused as to why he had that chat with them and what happened between our conversation and choosing the couples.
선택을 안 당하더라도 무조건 서운해요. 시안 씨든 민서 씨든.
It's just weird. Anyways, moving on to Jiyeon and Taewon. They're talking because remember, Taewon was one of the winners and there's not really anybody else that he has shown interest in so far. So it's kind of assumed that Jiyeon will be his pick to go to paradise with. But Jiyeon sits him down and is like, are you sure that you want to go with me? Like, is there really nobody else that you're interested in going with? Not because she's not interested or wouldn't like to go with him, but because she genuinely kind of wants him to explore his other options. And Taewon gives me secondhand embarrassment here because he goes,
테스트야. 테스트 아니야?
my dude, this is why everybody thinks that you're like 20, okay? You don't approach things maturely. But Jiyeon explains that going to paradise with somebody else might actually help cement his feelings for her more concretely. Like, it'll cement the fact that you're not just choosing me out of convenience, out of a lack of other options or something like that, right? But with that, we are at the couple matching. I say couple matching, it's not really a couple matching because the guys are just going, I want that one, and then they go, but regardless, couple matching. Because of their ranking in the men's game, Junso gets to choose first, followed by Jongsu, and lastly Taewon. And so, to start us off, Junso chooses Xian. Episode 9. Literally all of the girls and the host thought that he was going to choose Minso, especially after bringing her out solely to ask if she wanted to go to paradise. But alas, Xian and Junso go to paradise together. Jongsu is the next to pick his paradise date, and since Xian is already gone and he doesn't really want to go with Hyejin or Haerin because he doesn't want to cause further confusion for them, he decides to pick Yujin because he thinks that he'll have like the most fun with her. And finally, Taewon chooses Jiyeon to go to paradise with. Despite what Jiyeon had brought up earlier in the day, he said that he just genuinely wasn't interested in anybody else, and so it would have been a waste to go to paradise with them, so he chose Jiyeon again. And so our three paradise couples are Junso and Xian, Jongsu and Yujin, and Taewon and Jiyeon. I will say, Minso has really grown on me since the first half of the season, because at first I couldn't tell if her jealousy or her like more sassy moments were being directed towards the other women, like almost like a mean girl kind of vibe, or if that was more so towards Junso and just like her general personality. And having had seen her more in the later episodes, I just think she's very cute. She's just kind of silly, goofy. She gets angry easily, but like it's always in like kind of a cute way. I don't know how to describe it, but I like her.
갈 것 같다며 나보고. 갈 것 같았는데? 그니까. 나 진짜 오늘 가는 줄 알고 입었다니까? 나 이거 갈 때 입으려고 아껴뒀던 옷이야. 왜 나한테 그래? 그냥 혼잣말이야. 준서야.
She kind of reminds me of myself whenever I was in like middle school, because she'll talk with the other girls about her interactions with Junso and her takeaway will always be positive, but when she asks the other girls for confirmation of her interpretation of the events that occurred, they're kind of like, but see, I don't
근데 이 대화만 들었을 때 어때? 아니 진짜 아니야?
That was me. I was the Lulu. To me, she just always shows the more like innocent or naive side of having a crush on someone, and I think that's really cute. In Paradise, Jongsu and Yujin have dinner, and Jongsu kind of talks about how he's been feeling with Xian. It's clear that he likes Xian, but because of her involvement with some of the other men, it's kind of been weighing on his mind recently, and so he just wanted to spend time in Paradise relaxing and having fun with Yujin, who he refers to as a harmless person. Okay, I don't know what that means. At one point, Yujin asks Jongsu what draws him and many other guys to Xian, and he begins his response by saying, I'm gonna be really honest whenever I say this, okay? And I was like, good God, he's gonna say something horribly out of pocket, like, yeah, her boobs are great, man. Whenever a man starts a sentence with, I'm gonna be really honest whenever I say this, usually nothing good follows, okay? But thankfully, he ends up just saying that they talked about love a lot during their first time in paradise together, and that it made his heart kind of open up and start to race. And then he brings up the fact that Yujin is harmless again and calls her his Oompa Loompa. I'm your short, orange, green-haired worker bee and comic relief. Thanks? I would. If a man looked me in my eyes and went, you're my Oompa Loompa, girl, she takes that as like a compliment. I would have whacked that man. I don't know, I don't get him. Moving on to Junso and Xian. Girl, y'all already know I don't like them. But if you still do, strap in, because this section is annoying, particularly for Junso. Like, Xian is cold and he basically is like, dude, what do you want me to do about it? Like, wear a jacket next time. Ugh. And then Xian stops eating for like 2 seconds and he's like, okay, if you're done, let's go. Let's go. Let's get up. Let's leave.
다 먹었으면 가자. 다 먹었으면 가자.
Like, just not being very considerate towards her at all. And then Xian asks who Junso would have picked had he not been first and Xian had already been taken. And he says Minsor.
나랑 두 번째로 천국도 갔던 애를 뽑았을 것 같아.
민설?
민설.
Because she's been weighing on his mind recently.
아 진짜?
If Xian was annoyed before, girl, she's pissed now. Okay, she looks like she wants to stab a bitch. I don't really blame her. But with his inability to read a room, Junso just continues to talk about Minsor at length, while Xian basically zones out and is like, oh, really? That's cool. I didn't know that. Really?
그렇구나. 몰랐네.
in general, Junso is just not focused on Xian during this entire time. And Xian can tell. Her emotions bubble over at one point, and she explicitly asks him to treat her nicer, saying that like he's gotten too comfortable too quickly and is now kind of treating her coldly. And yet instead of reflecting and going, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I didn't mean to treat you that way. I will, self-reflect and try to do better in the future because I don't want you to feel like that. Junso just goes, well, I'm always like this. Now, I'm not saying that he should change everything about himself just because Xian asked him to, okay? But to me, if you're interested in someone and they express to you that how you've been treating them has been bothering them and upsetting them, you would think that you would take actions to ensure that that doesn't happen again.
시안 씨가 나한테 조금 다정하게 해주면 안 돼? 라고 했을 때는 준서 씨가 굽히고 들어가서 아 진짜 미안 나 그럴 생각 아니었고 이러면서 다시 좀 끌어당겼어야 되는데 거기서 그런가? 이렇게 돼버리면 사실
I will say I do think that Xian is getting a little unnecessarily annoyed with him on certain points, and I'm not exactly 100% in her favor because like girl, you wanted a manly man but you also want them to treat you super sweetly. You know that Junso is more blunt and that he doesn't do those kinds of things. If you wanted someone to fit your criteria, you have him in Inferno. Tayo. Like, he's the only one that is the more manly, but also really sweet kind of guy. She has Junso, who's the super manly guy, but treats her kind of coldly. And then she has Jongsu, who isn't the super manly man, but he's nice to her. He treats her well. And she can't decide on either of them, but then she also sees Tayo, who is the culmination of both of those things, and is like, Get real. She literally says that she wants someone who expresses their feelings openly. Who else is that other than Tayo? But whatever. Junso ends up like winning her back by covering her shoulder with some strings. I'm assuming from her shirt or her purse or something, so she won't be cold. And later in the car, they hold hands while they're on their way to the bar. So, whatever. Yeah. And this is when producers decided to be messy, okay? Because they have both Jongsu and Yujin and Junso and Xian go to the same bar. My dude, you know that like Junso and Jongsu are both after, like, never in the history of Singles Inferno have we ever had a double date.
Never in 40 years of being in the Abbey Lee Dance Company has anyone been giving a solo the day of the recital. Ever.
That was ringing through my mind right there, I'm sorry. And when I say it was messy, I mean it was messy, okay? Because all night long, Xian has been disappointed by the way that Junso has been treating her and has been yearning for that sweet, considerate, caring kind of boyfriend behavior, right? And who is known for treating everybody around him super nicely? Thinking it's Jongsu. They decide to play pool, couple against couple, and Xian's inexperience combined with Junso's competitiveness culminates in Junso being even more brash with Xian. On multiple occasions, he calls her by ya or hey, something that she has already expressed being uncomfortable with multiple times before, okay? And throughout the game, he just kind of treats her like a coach would. Like, he starts coaching her. He gets angry whenever she makes mistakes and very, like, bluntly tells her what to do. Meanwhile, all of this is being juxtaposed with how Jongsu is treating Yujin. He helps her learn how to play, he compliments her whenever she makes a good shot, he never criticizes or disparages her, and he's not even interested in her romantically. All I have to say is that me and Dai were on the same wavelength during this entire date, okay?
저 야하지 말아야 된다니까 자꾸 야야 그거. 얘기를 계속 몇 번이나 했잖아.
맞아.
근데 저거는
붙었나
무시하는 것도 아니고 뭐야.
무시한 게 아니라 20 몇 년을 살았다 보니까
그러면은 이제 둘은 안 맞는 거야. 여기서 헤어져야 돼.
Moving on to Taewon and Jiyeon. Y'all. Taewon is a narc, okay? Jiyeon is swimming in the pool while Taewon sits on the edge, and Jiyeon asks him what his dream is, to which Taewon goes on a stupidly long rant about how he basically just wants to be the god of some music culture and be admired by all. Y'all are gonna think I'm over-exaggerating. I'm gonna read you his response, word for word, okay? Well, the work I'm doing right now is about building a culture. I want to become someone who grows that culture by tens and thousands of times bigger. I want everyone to recognize me as the one who made that culture grow. I want to be respected by everyone who loves that culture. That's my dream. People in Korea are often deprived of the opportunity to discover what they like. I find that so unfortunate. But nowadays, more people are starting to explore their personal preferences. So I always work hard to share good music with people. I only want to be known by those who truly know my worth. And I want to be recognized by those with that depth of understanding. That's what I want. That's my dream in its simplest terms. First off, my dude, simplest? Like, simplest terms. And second off, so you're telling me you want to be a cult leader? You want to be admonished by every person who loves the culture whose growth you are awarded credit for, and you want them to know you deeply and praise your worth so much that it somehow skyrockets over the tower of arrogance already looming behind you. Okay. I'm gonna be honest, it's a little weird. It's a little weird. Jiyeon clocks his attitude right away, by the way, because in a post interview, she talks about how he only talked about himself. He never creates a two-way conversation. She exposes that the cute little ice skating date that we saw in episode 7 was really more of Taewon just going off without her and doing his own thing and leaving her behind. Moreover, we find out that last night when they were eating, Jiyeon asked Taewon if he had any more questions to ask her, to which he responded, "I'll ask when I think of one." I'm not saying that she has to make him fill out a questionnaire, but for God's sake, ask her anything. Literally anything. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite song? How many countries have you been to? What color are you gonna paint your nails next? Where'd you get that dress from? How many books have you read this year? Anything, my dude. Literally anything. And Dex is pissed off too, man. From the minute Jiyeon starts describing how Taewon just kind of left her in the dust, you can tell that he's getting angry about how she's being treated.
남자들은 단순해서 이제 그렇긴 한데
아니 근데
저렇게 대답하진 않죠.
그치.
그리고 여기서도 사실 같이 좀 들어가줄 수도 있는 거잖아요. 근데
아예 안
자기가 이미
들어갔나?
안 들어가겠다고 마음을 정해
나중에 안
놓으니까
들어갔어?
고집, 아집이 느껴졌어요.
고치.
And then, as if he couldn't make himself look any more obnoxious, he says that pretty much he just wants to stay single and live a happy life with his friends and the culture that he loves. Which, to be fair, is a perfectly fine aspiration to have. That's really okay. You can live your life that way. You don't have to get into romantic relationships and do the whole love, marriage, baby carriage thing. You don't have to follow that path. However, not only are you on a literal dating show, but also Jiyeon told you less than 24 hours ago that her dream is to become a mother and be a good wife for her family. Taewon having that dream is completely okay. But coming onto a dating show and telling the girl who just told you that her aspiration in life is to become a good mother and wife that you lean towards staying single is like a slap in the face. Whatever, we're going back to Inferno where everyone's just kind of chilling out. They're talking about who they chose this time around, and Hyejin admits that she chose Jonghoon. And she even says that she'll continue to choose him in the future. This serves as like the perfect excuse for them to go off on their own and talk together because Jonghoon didn't really know that Hyejin was interested in him. She hadn't been very vocal about it or expressive about it up until this point, but they're cute. He mentions the 2 outfits that she had previously worn and having wanted to compliment them but not having like the courage to. And they talk about pursuing each other from here on out, and they end the night by taking a cute couple Polaroid together. At the same time, Haerin takes Dongho to go have a one-on-one chat with, while Minsol and Taeo talk to Arin about her and Dongho. Since Arin shares a room with the 2 other women who happen to like Dongho, she hasn't had much of an opportunity to really talk about her experience with him in Paradise, and she wants to know if him going off to talk with Haerin is just Haerin pursuing Dongho, or if Dongho's giving her that chance. But Dongho and Haerin's conversation is kind of just Haerin heavily flirting with Dongho while he sits there and awkwardly laughs and nods along.
가자 같이. 같이 가자.
And I want to mention here that from the first time that Haerin and Dongho talk, the hosts have all been convinced that Haerin causes Dongho to sway, to the point where some of them even think that he might choose Haerin over Arin eventually. But when I watch them interact, I don't get that. From my perspective, Dongho isn't flustered in the way that the hosts seem to think that he is. Dongho seems to have trouble being straightforward, especially whenever it comes to something like rejecting someone. And so, although he goes along with Haerin, anytime she flirts with him or insinuates that they should go to Paradise together, he seems to freeze up, almost as if he doesn't really know what to do.
두 볼을 붉히면서 수줍어하는 남자가 이상했어요.
수줍어한다기보다
수줍은 게 아니라 당황스러워?
그러니까 나는 내가 태어나서 처음 봐가지고 이렇게 뭔가 표현을 직설적으로 딱딱 박는 사람이에요.
And I must say, as someone who hates outright telling somebody, no, I don't like you, or stop pursuing me, I can read his body language like a book, okay? It's this feeling of like, I don't want to hurt them, but I don't want to lead them on, so I'm kind of just sitting here hoping that they get the hint that I'm not really as interested as they are, and like maybe they'll kind of back off. But regardless, eventually Dongwoo and Haerin return, and actually Arin starts to let her jealous side flow a little bit.
아, 아침이 되는 줄 알았어. 들어가 잘 뻔했네.
무서운 사람들이네.
She's cute, she's sassy. But nevertheless, despite being super tired, Dongwoo agrees to go with Arin and have a chat one-on-one. And she kind of just lets him know that she's still thinking about him and is interested in him. And again, this is my point. You can see Dongwoo physically relax whenever he's around Arin. He still gets flustered, he still flirts, but he's not tense, he's not uneasy, he's not waiting for it to be over or looking for a way out of it. Hell, even when Arin says that they should go to bed because Dongwoo is tired, Dongwoo is like, no, I want to stay with you. Like, I'll stay up later, that's okay. And only gets up when Arin says actually she's the one that's kind of sleepy. I find that Dongwoo and Arin remind me a lot of my favorite couple from season 2, Yoonjae and Seoun. They almost give a vibe of a old married couple, like just two people that are kind of meant to be together, you know? Unfortunately, that means our time in Inferno is over and we have to go back to Paradise with Junso and Xian. They're sitting together and it's obvious that the tension from earlier has kind of carried over because Junso once again speaks to Xian using the nya ending. I explained that in the last video that the nya ending, despite sounding cute, is actually very blunt and is usually used by men to other men. It's not something that you would use to talk to your girlfriend with, and it's a tone that a lot of women are really put off by, especially from a potential partner, and she's already expressed that she doesn't like that tone. But later in the night, they're sitting together in their room, and Xian tries to talk to Junso, and it seems like he's just fallen asleep mid-conversation.
2일차 천국도 어떤데?
2일차 전
자냐?
Episode 10. Thank God, for his own benefit, Junso did not fall asleep yet. Regardless, however, the conversation doesn't really go that well, in my opinion. Xian again brings up how the way he was treating her was upsetting her, and she even tries to give him an out by saying like, I figured maybe you're just tired, giving him the benefit of the doubt, right? And this man goes, well, I think I tried really hard. That's just how I am. And then to make things worse, he tries to high-five her? That was stupid. That was stupid. Why'd you do that? Why would you high five? Why would you?
저 하이파이브를 왜 이러고 있어? 무슨
그러니까 시안 씨한테 됐어 지금.
하이파이브 말이 돼 지금? 자, 오케이, 화이팅! 이게 말이 되냐고 지금.
Again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that somebody should change everything about themselves just because a potential partner wants them to, okay? Not at all. However, what I am saying is very in line with what Xian tells him, which is that when someone you like expresses to you, hey, I don't like when you do this, it makes me upset. Especially when it's something as small as calling a person by their name or not talking to her like she's one of the boys. I don't think it's unreasonable to at the very least try to make that adjustment for them.
근데 원래 연애는 막처럼 조금 더 서로 노력해도 잘 만나지.
But despite all the mishaps that happened in Paradise that night, they do seem to end on an amicable note. Moving on, the following morning in Inferno, Minseol comes to talk to Arin and Haerin about her difficulties with Junso. And again, this is one of the points where I want to take back some of my feelings about Minseol from my first video, because she's just a cutie, okay? She talks to Arin and Haerin about what happened with Junso and him basically leaving her behind after asking if she wanted to go to Paradise. And they help her come up with a plan to pull him aside and express her feelings about what happened. They encourage her to show him that her actions made her upset, and they even help her practice the interaction so that she's ready whenever he comes back from Paradise.
천국도 어땠어?
그 뭐 이것저것 얘기도 좀 하고.
그러면 조니워커 마셨어? 안 마신 걸로 가자.
Speaking of coming back from paradise, the three couples are in the helicopter together, and during the ride back, Xian rests her head on Junso's shoulder. However, Jongsu, who is sitting right next to Xian, sees this and is very obviously kind of put off by it. Later in an interview, he says that he tends to be quite conservative, and so seeing her resting her head on another guy really made him have a lot of thoughts. And while I'm not gonna comment on him being conservative, I am going to say, dude, what did you expect? Like, not only are you on a dating show, but you're on a dating show where the entire purpose is to talk to everybody there and go on dates with multiple of them in order to find the right match. Not to mention, you act like you weren't practically encouraging her to rest her head on your shoulder while you were massaging her hand during the first day. I get the jealousy to an extent because, you know, that's the girl you like. And I even get it in the sense of like, I just don't really like PDA around other people. Like, that's okay. But he seems to almost think less of her because she leaned her head on another guy's shoulder for 30 minutes in a helicopter ride. Because not only are you two not together, like you're not exclusive at all, but also you don't own her. Like, you don't get to control her decisions just because you like her. And she doesn't owe you anything just because you went to paradise one time. It just gives very basic misogynistic vibes to me, okay? In the way that he's fine stringing other girls along. He's fine flirting with Yujin basically the entire time that they were on their double date. He's fine with you being physically close to him in the helicopter ride. But don't you dare do it with some other guy, you slut. Like, it gives that vibe, you know? Not a fan. Not a fan. But the couples come back and the girls do a bit of a debrief together. Xian and Minso kind of commiserate about Junso, the way he speaks to them, the way he treats them, and they realize that it's been pretty similar, but also that it seems that Junso has gotten deeper with Xian in terms of like what he's talked about with her. However, Xian also brings up that Junso said that Minso has been weighing on his mind, and her reaction
민설 이름이 나왔어. 그래서 나 너무 당황한 거야.
It's so her. She really does feel like the little sister of the group. She's so cute. But Minso brings up the fact that Junso also asked her if she wanted to go to paradise yesterday. And the conversation kind of ends in this way of like, not necessarily tension, at least not between the girls, but more so just shared confusion and uncertainty towards Junso and his feelings. And now there's another women's game. The women must wrestle each other in order to push the other one off of this buoy that's in the center of the pool. And just like the men's game yesterday, only the top 3 women will be able to select a man of their choice to take to paradise. Because of the uneven numbers of female contestants, the first 2 rounds will be 1-on-1, and then the last one is like a battle of 3. And then from there, the 3 winners of those rounds will compete against each other in like a final round. Yujin wins against Jian, and then despite Junso's coaching from the sideline,
자세 낮춰, 자세. 다리 잡아, 다리 밑에.
Minso loses to Haerin, and finally Hyejin, Xian, and Arin face off. And I'm gonna go on a little bit of a rant here, okay? This is why I brought up more of the details of the game, because Xian pissed me off during this game. Xian has been to paradise every single day that it was possible for a female contestant to go to paradise, okay? On day 1, she went with Jongsu. On day 2, she went with Taeo. On day 3, nobody went. On day 4, she went with Jonghoon. On day 5, they were introducing the new contestants, so nobody went. And then on day 6 and 7, she went with Junso. So she's gone to paradise 5 times already. Plus, she won both of the dessert date games. And yet, instead of seeing that her opponents are Arin, who has been to paradise once with Dongho, and Haerin, who went with Jongsu at the beginning, and Jonghoon on day 4 with Xian, and thinking, you know, since I've already been there several times and I don't even know which guy I really like right now, maybe I should just bow out and let somebody else go this time. She does everything in her power to make sure that she wins. And I mean everything. Like, that girl is visibly exhausted after the first round. And then in the final, Yujin and Haerin are too caught up in going after each other to secure a date with Dongho that Xian ends up winning. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Xian should have just jumped in the water, not tried at all, like given up first glance. But if it were me and I was going up against someone like Hyejin, who I know hasn't been near as many times as I have, and I see her really trying her all against me even whenever we're both exhausted, I would probably sit there and go, you know, I've been so many times already. Clearly, she wants to go. I should just give her the chance to go because I've already had it so many times. Personally, it's always been an ick of mine whenever people get so competitive that they end up not caring about their friends or hurting other people around them just so that way they end up winning. So it kind of just struck a chord with me and I didn't really like it. But I digress. Xian came in first, Haydn came in second, and Yujin came in third. So with the game over, just like last time, everyone is encouraged to go on little mini dates in Inferno. And this is my least favorite part of the season because Taeo and Xian go to chat together. And I will say, Xian's dress is very cute, but seeing the way that Xian seems to be very overwhelmed, Taeo asks her if his advances have made her uncomfortable or put pressure on her, just as kind of a way to gauge her feelings for him. And as unfortunate as it is, and as much as I want to bonk this girl on the head for not choosing the one good guy, I will applaud Xian here for being honest and upfront with Taeo that he is currently ranking third in her mind, even though it's obviously a very awkward and upsetting conversation for both of them. And Taeo accepts her feelings and kind of says, you know, I won't pursue you anymore because I don't want to make you uncomfortable. He says that he doesn't have any regrets, and he even compares his feelings for Xian to that of a first love.
내가 막 되게 순수했던 처음 사랑을 대했던 감정처럼 너가 그렇게 받아들여줬었으면 좋겠어.
너무너무 그래서 더 미안한 것 같아.
And I think we really start to see how much this experience and everything that has been happening has been weighing on Xian, because she kind of starts to break down at his words. And as much as I dislike Xian's choices sometimes, I do feel for her here. It's a very solemn conversation, but I do definitely think it was for the best. Not only for Taeo's peace of mind and his own closure, but also honestly for Xian, just so that way she doesn't have yet another thing weighing on her. I think this was possibly the best rejection conversation that we've ever seen on the show, like not just in this season but in all of them. It was just handled very maturely. On a similar note, Minso and Junso go to chat as well, and Minso confronts Junso about how, you know, he left her and how that hurt her. And Junso basically says that at the time he wasn't super sure about his feelings for Minso because originally he kind of viewed her as a little sister, but after having gone to paradise again with Xian, he's confirmed his feelings for Xian as romantic versus more platonic for Minso. And again, it ends up being a bit of a solemn conversation. You can see the energy and the light almost dim from Minso the more that Junso expresses his feelings for Xian. But like the last one, I think it was necessary. And while I don't really like Junso, I do appreciate that he tries to make it clear for Minso that she isn't really on his radar anymore. I just feel bad for Minso because I have really grown to like her. But with that, we are at our final couple matching. A reminder that Xian will pick her date first, followed by Haerin, and lastly Yujin. And Xian picks Episode 11. We get a flashback to earlier in the day when people were going on their mini dates in Inferno, and we see a bit of the conundrum that Dongul's girls are in. Because remember, Arin, Haerin, and Yujin all like Dongul, with Arin being the only one who has gotten to go to paradise with him. So since she won't be able to go to paradise at all, Arin takes Dongul and wants to talk to him. But also, the biggest question for Yujin now is who Haerin is going to pick, because she gets to pick before Yujin does. And if Haerin picks Dongul, then Yujin doesn't really know who she's gonna go with. So Dongul basically has like a line of girls that he has to chat with before the day is over. Arin goes with Dongul first. They're cute as always. What's new?
난 할 얘기 끝났어.
아 재밌게 논다.
난 엄청 재밌게 놀 거야. 아마 어떻게 놀지 너무너무 궁금할걸? 왜냐면 진짜 끝내주게 놀 거거든.
So if he goes to paradise, you better be thinking about her and, you know, jealous about how he's missing out on this fun time that she's having in Inferno. And she explains later that in talking like this, she was trying to get across the point of stay here with me, like don't go. Like if you don't want to go, tell the other girls that you don't want to go with them. Which the first time I watched this part, I was totally in tune with Arin. I was like, yeah, definitely. You don't want him to go. That's what those words meant, you know? But the second time watching it through, I was kind of with the host because I was like, girl.
그 의미였던 거야?
예? 아니요, 나 아린 씨 아린 씨 아무도 그렇게 알아들을 수가 없어요, 아린 씨.
와. 전 거의 암호 해독 수준이에요. 진짜.
I do think it was her way of trying to express her feelings for Dongul without being too forward with them and putting pressure on Dongul. But Dongul then goes to talk with Yujin, and Yujin kind of flirts with Dongul and makes it obvious that, you know, she still likes him. But Dongul says that it's unlikely that his feelings will change even if he goes to paradise with her, simply because there's not a lot of time left. And while some may criticize him for not not being super explicit with his rejection. I think this is very Dongho, and it's something that I relate to a lot personally, because as someone who has trouble saying directly to someone's face, no, I don't like you, I think that by saying that his feelings are not going to change regardless of if he is taken to paradise or not, it's very clear that like, nah, there's not a chance. Ironically, whenever he goes to talk with Haerin, he kind of just recites the same spiel to her too, and since she pushes for more clear, concrete words, he ends up explicitly telling her that his feelings are leaning towards another person at this point, and that his mind is pretty much made up. However, he does also still tell her that he will accept if she picks him to go to paradise with, because he recognizes that it is her privilege to do so since she is one of the winners of the game. I think he lays it out very maturely, both turning her down and making his own feelings clear while simultaneously kind of giving her the space to still make the decision that she wants to. And again, all the hosts have been thinking that Dongho is like being super swayed by Haerin, so they're all surprised by this. And I'm like, girl, have we been watching the same Dongho? Because I've known pretty clearly since like the first interactions of him with Arin that like that was the girl for him. But anyways, we're back to present time where the couple matching is taking place in a twist that is both surprising and disappointing. Xian picks Jongsu to go to paradise with, which, girl, Jongsu, Junso, rock on a hard place, okay? But with how confused she already is, I would assume that a date in paradise with Jongsu would just result in more conflicting feelings on her end. But I can also see it as a way for her to confirm her feelings for one or the other, you know? A way to avoid the what-ifs. Next, despite the earlier conversation that they had, Haerin does choose Dongho to go to paradise with. I understand why she does this. I think for her personality, it makes sense that she does this. I think it suits her personally, and I think it was probably the right choice for her. However, if I was on the show and the guy I like told me that he likes someone else, and even if I take him, he's not really gonna like me anymore, I would probably just choose the guy I'd have the most fun with. Not only do I not want to be your second choice, but I refuse to put myself through a paradise trip where I know for a fact that you would rather be here with someone else. But that's just me. Everyone's different, whatever. And finally, in a surprisingly messy choice, with her first and second choices gone, Dongho and Jongsu respectively, Yujin decides to take Jonghoon to paradise. And while I get to a degree why she chose him, I also just hate that she did, because it separates Jonghoon and Hyejin for the night when they really could have used it to get closer to one another. To be fair to Yujin, I don't think she was aware of the fact that Jonghoon and Hyejin were getting closer, but regardless, it's still rather disappointing. But with that, we have our final three paradise couples. We have Xian and Jongsu, Haerin and Dongho, and Yujin and Jonghoon. Starting off with Xian and Jongsu, they seem okay. There seems to be a bit of tension between them, particularly from Jongsu, and especially whenever Xian talks about her time in paradise with Junso. But in paradise, they sit by the window together and talk about how their time has been just overall. And when Xian talks about how she often ended up confused, Jongsu actually shares that he also found himself kind of conflicted recently. He says that he was hoping that Xian would come back from getting to know everybody and settle on him, but obviously she didn't do that. So he says that he just really didn't know what she was feeling. And Xian says that part of the reason that she chose him to go to paradise with today was that she just wanted a clear confirmation as to who she enjoys spending time with more. And she apologizes for having made things confusing for him as well. However, as she's trying to say, like, let's have a good time in paradise together tonight, Jongsu cuts her off to bring up that stupid helicopter ride again. And he's like, why'd you lean your head on Junso? And she's like, girl, I was tired. And you said to lean on him, so I did. And even though she says that she realized in that moment that she was making a mistake because she was doing it next to Jongsu, he's sitting there pouting like a toddler. Like, this man is acting like they were engaged and she slept with Junso, okay? Like, girl was tired and rested her head on someone because they had just been to paradise for the second time. What did you want her to do? Profess her undying love for you? Like, dude, huh? Get over it. And while he's throwing a pity party for himself because he was waiting for nothing, Shanna's like, my dude, you didn't really show me that you were waiting for me in the first place. Like, you also seemed like you wanted to get to know all the other women. And this bitch goes,
내가 가서 그랬나? 내가 가서 그랬나?
my dude, yes you did. Like, sure, Haerin just picked you and you didn't really have a say in that. But you picked Hyejin, you picked Yujin. Hell, need I remind you that you picked 4 women to give chocolates to, saying that you were interested in them. And you dissed the 2 women that were sitting right beside you by saying that you would want to go to paradise with somebody new. How exactly was she supposed to get that you were longing and yearning and just waiting for her to come back to you, my love, whenever you were doing that? I don't know. To me, he seems to think that he has some sort of control or stake in Xian just because he likes her. And so if she doesn't abide by his wishes, most of them unspoken, he gets upset and he pouts like a little baby. He just gives me big baby vibes. Like, I don't have the patience to put up with a man like that. And then he breaks out a rose petal from his date with Haedin and gives it to her by saying like,
너랑 처음 스파했을 때 좀 많이 설렜거든.
okay. Am I the only one that feels a little weird about that? Like, you were on a date with another woman and you took something from that date with that other woman. Like, it just, I don't know, it's just kind of, it's kind of off-putting to me. Whatever. Later in the night, they decide to take like a quick nap to recharge, and Jongsu very awkwardly scoots his way up beside Xian in the bed, and he kind of just lays there and watches her sleep. I guess it's kind of romantic, but I don't like them together, so I'm a little biased, but moving on. Haedin and Dongho are awkward, about as much as you would expect given the circumstances. Haedin asks Dongho if there is absolutely zero chance for him to grow feelings for her over the next 2 days, and you can instantly see Dongho become uncomfortable as he musters a, yeah, I don't think so. And of course, this kind of dampens Haedin, and so I think Dongho tries to kind of reassure her by doing the whole like, it's not you, it's me kind of thing. But regardless, I think they end on an amicable note. We only see Yoojin and Jonghoon in a series of clips and interviews from Yoojin the following morning, and it seems as though they just kind of had some basic surface level chats while not really doing anything too major. And Yoojin particularly notes that Jonghoon had a habit of kind of cutting off the conversation and being like, okay, let's move to our next event, like almost as if he was on a schedule. One of the hosts even said that their date seemed like a tour that was like carefully organized by a tour guide and who was very attentive to like, okay, this is the time that we have for this, so let's move on now. Like, back in Inferno, Jiyeon talks with Arin about Taewon's confusing behavior towards her, the not asking her questions, the leaving her behind, the wanting to stay single even though he knows that she wants to get married and have a family. And Arin is basically like, girl, I hope she leaves that weirdo behind. The following day, Jiyeon brings up her concerns to Taewon. And again, this is one of the times that I'm going to have to read a quote that he says because it just doesn't make sense, okay? Because he goes, I tend to be negative or say the opposite of what I mean, but in doing so, I'm actually showing how much I agree with it. Even the hosts are like, dude, my god, what? He says he kind of wants her to change his beliefs on things, and that's why he lays stuff out the way that he does. But like, my dude, you never asked her anything. You have not shown us any inclination that you give a crap about her opinion on your beliefs, okay? You talk at length about what you think, and then you don't say anything else. You don't go, how about you? What do you think? Do you agree? Nothing. You just cut the conversation off. That man is something. But the Paradise couples return to Inferno, and now is the time for anybody to have last-minute dates before the final decision. Episode 12. Junso rushes to call Xian out, only to get there and try to act all casual like, hey, what's up? Xian has another pretty dress on today. I will give it to Junso in this conversation that I can see he's trying a bit more for Xian here. He talks about missing her last night and wanting to watch the sunset with her. And honestly, I just love how giddy it makes the host. Like, Dex's reaction to this. Dongho and Arin also chat, and as usual, they're cute. What's new? He tries to pick out her earrings for her, and
이건 좀 무서워. 그거 하지 마. 이걸로 해.
안 해. 그냥 내가 하고 싶은 거 하고 싶어.
아 그래? 그럼 그렇게 하자.
they're cute. I love them. Jiyeon once again tries to throw Taewon a bone and invites him to ask her questions about herself and who she's interested in. And he's like, I think I asked everything, honestly. Like, I don't think I need to know anything more. They do a couple of group activities to bond one last time. They go swimming down at the beach, and then they later have a campfire again. They take the time to give thanks to everybody and even reveal their ages and professions. But with that being said, the next day comes and we are ready for the final decisions. The women are all spread out on the aisle, and from here, each male contestant will go one by one to the female contestant that they would like to leave Inferno with. Once everybody is standing with their final choices, the female contestants will then decide if they also want to leave Inferno with the man who chose them, or if they want to just say no and go by themselves. Some of the girls do seem to be placed strategically by producers to create a bit more drama and suspense in it. I think they're positioned in a way that the men who have multiple women that like them have to pass the ones that they are probably not going to pick before getting to the person that are going to pick. And I often see netizens get angry at people who stop by people who were one of their options before moving on. But I think that's something that the producers kind of tell them to do in order to, again, create some more suspense, some more drama, because I think most of the choices are pretty predictable at this point, and so they're trying to spice things up and make you go, but what if? You know, it's just, yeah. I'm gonna go a little out of order for continuity's sake, but as expected, Dongho chooses Arin as his final choice, and of course Arin chooses him back, and so they escape the island of Inferno together. And then Jonghoon chooses Hyejin, and Hyejin chooses him back as well, so they also escape the island of Inferno together. Taewon goes next and obviously goes to Jiyeon, and I was hoping and praying for my girl Jiyeon to go because oh my god, does he not deserve a baddie like her. But unfortunately, she chooses him too. She don't look like she wants to. To be honest, I think it was mostly out of convenience, so that way she didn't have to reject him at the very end like that. And even Taewon picks up on that from her facial expressions.
마음에는 안 들지만 약간 이런 표정에 혼자 남겨둘 순 없으니까 해준다 이런 느낌이 있는데.
But who's to say? I don't know. She don't like that dude. I don't either. Side note, this is completely off topic, but I know everyone has to hate filming these final decisions because they're just standing there in the sun for so long. Like, it's long to watch an edited version of it, okay? And that's with cutting out the long periods of time where one guy has to go from here to all the way up this hill, all the island, all the way over there to that girl. And then the next person goes and he has to go all the way over here and he'll stop here and then all the way up and and then each of the women's decisions as well are so drawn out. Like, I feel like they either had to have like an in-ear or a producer on the side. It's so horrible and I hate it. I hate it so much. I feel like they had to have been sitting out there for at least an hour just standing there doing nothing. Every time, it just seems so miserable. And then once the girls make their choices, they have to all wait for the couple to walk all the way down the island and then all around and then, oh, they're leaving. Okay, now it's the next person's turn. I would be throwing sand at a producer. Let me get out of here. Whatever, back on topic. Tae, Jongsu, and Junso all choose Xian. Big surprise there. And as much as I wish she wouldn't, Xian chooses Junso. Again, babe. Rock in a hard place as soon as you cut Tae out of the equation. But with that, all of our final decisions have been made. We had Dongho and Arin, Hyejin and Jonghoon, Taewon and Jiyeon, and Xian and Jinso, leaving Yujin, Haerin, Minsol, Jongsu, and Tae alone on the island of Inferno. So, what'd you guys think? Did you correctly predict the final choices, or were you a little bit taken aback by them? And if so, which one had you the most surprised? Let me know down below. I would love to hear all of your thoughts in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, do whatever you feel like. And with that, I will see you next time. Bye bye!